All right, Pete. I think it's time for your topics, man. I don't know if you have anything to talk about, but in terms of anything that we haven't already talked about, so is there any other topics that kind of come to mind?
I have one, and I have a question for you. It's kind of going back to the trade deadline, but now a little bit of time has passed. The
Uh
All-Star
huh.
break is in between. We've had a little bit of time to ruminate, right? And in the
Mm-hmm.
time since, some interviews have come out. Some people have talked about the experience of the trade deadline, right? And
Mm-hmm.
one notable one that came out today, I watched. I don't know if you got a chance to see it. On JJ Redick's podcast, The Old Man and the Three, he had Tyrese Haliburton on today and asked him, about what happened, right? What he thought about the trade. And Tyrese Haliburton, I'm going to paraphrase for what he said, of course, because it's not in text. I
Uh
just
huh.
watched it earlier. He basically said, like, of all the people that were in Sacramento, I wanted to be here the most. So I was telling everybody I love Sacramento. Who
Mm-hmm.
who decides to come to Sacramento? You're going to pay the California taxes, but you're going to choose to live in Sacramento over LA. Like he just kind of went on and on about how disappointed he was. Like I wanted to be here, right?
Right.
Now my question is this. I know so far it's been all right, and I really do like Sabonis. My biggest question for you is a scale of like 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
The next 2 seasons, how much, or 3 seasons? Nah, let's not even put a season count on it. How much are they gonna regret trading him? Scale of 1 to 10,
I
and
think
being
it's
the
gonna.
worst.
I think it's gonna be a 10, man. Like I love Sabonis. I think Sabonis is a great player. I don't think he's obviously not a number one. Sorry, Sean, if you're watching. I don't think he's a number one option on a team, but I think Sabonis is a nice piece. My only thing and my only issue with it was that Tyrese Haliburton said publicly that he wanted to rebuild Sacramento. Like when you have a player that is interested in rebuilding your brand, rebuilding your organization, and it's all about that, and the fact that you just let him go for Sabonis, who was a great all star, he was an all star player, right? He was all star last year, um, but it is frustrating when you want to have a balance between being on the owner side and being on the player side. I know that's very controversial to say nowadays. I want there to be a balance, and the problem is that trades like these make the balance very impossible for me to feel like the organization was done wrong or anything. They probably haven't been done wrong, but I just think that it's foolish for the Kings to continue this sort of I would say path of not being able to do the right moves. It seems like they continuously miss the mark every time it's a draft, whether they're re-signing free agents. Like they continue to just miss the mark, and it's frustrating as a fan of a guy like Tyrese Haliburton. I said it the year he got drafted. I like this kid. I think he's going to be a good player. Watching a little bit of his Cyclones, like just seeing him play. Like I looked at it and I was like, okay, I could see why they drafted him. I could see like the talents there, and I think I would like the backcourt of Fox and Halliburton. But obviously, right now, I just think that like if he's just too good and too skilled to just give him away, and I think that that's what the Sacramento Kings did. And I think the Indiana Pacers were looking to rebuild their roster. Obviously, they talked about wanting to either be finals or bust, and I think that they decided to go the bust route and decided to trade away some of their all stars. I think Miles Turner will be traded next season. That's my prediction, or I'm not sure if he's a free agent this year, but I think that he will be traded. And so, like, when I look at a guy like Tyrese Halliburton, man, it's sad to see that they let a kid like this go for basically kind of like a lateral trade. This wasn't a trade where one player is moving up in the world. Like the Kings are still going to be the Kings. Like no matter what goes on, and they're also looking to trade Holmes as well in this coming off season. So they're looking to offload already. So it's one of those things. I'm looking at the Kings. It's like, then what did you really do all this for?
And it's so short-sighted, right? Like, sure, Sabonis is good right now, but like, and this is why I said I didn't really like it even when the trade happened. Like, this doesn't make you good enough to really do anything, right? And you just gave up a guy who I would say was easily your clearest. This guy is really talented and can actually be an all-star probably
Mm-hmm.
of all the guys you've drafted in the last 5 years. You know, This was the guy. You finally had the guy. And this is why I've only grown to dislike this trade more and more, right? I like Sabonis as a player. And on a pure, like, just on paper, like, talent for talent, like, it's not terrible right now, immediately right now. You're Sacramento. Why are you worried about right now? Stop thinking about right now. You're not good. You have to build a culture of players who want to be there and
Mm-hmm.
want to win with your organization. You
Yeah.
can't just go, like, how many times have we seen it work where they get these mercenary teams together and they go win a championship? Like, it never happens right away. And not only
Yeah.
that, this is not even of anywhere near the caliber of those
Mm-hmm.
teams. So hold on to your young guys. Like, Halliburton is, I mean, where would you put him? I would say he's probably like a top 12 young guy in the league. Is that maybe even too? Maybe he's
I,
less than that. Maybe he's like top 8. I don't know. I would say he's probably top 12. I don't even, I have to look at it on
yeah.
paper. But
Mm-hmm.
like, Sabonis is good, but it's just not good enough, man. It's just a bad return with such a good young player.
Mm-hmm.
And like, my thing too is watching the interview with him on Old Man and the Three. I highly recommend it. I don't watch JJ Redick's podcast all the time, but I was interested just to hear what he said. He was pretty, like, he seemed like he was pretty emotional about it. Like, that is a special type of person that comes around to a city like
Mm-hmm.
Sacramento, and then you send him away. Like, that doesn't speak well of your organization long term. People
Yeah.
notice that stuff for sure.
Yeah, and I kind of said it. It's just like there's rarely a guy in the league that would play for an organization like the Kings, right? As much
Yep.
as Sacramento's in California and all that, it's still not L.A. where these players have all access to all these type of things that they enjoy. Tyrese Haliburton isn't like that. He's not a guy that enjoys the LA culture lifestyle. He's a grinded guy. Like, he's a guy that played at Iowa State, if I'm not mistaken. In
Yep.
Iowa, what's there to do in
He's
Iowa,
a
right?
hooper, man.
And so when I look at that and when I see a kid like that just absolutely gives his heart out for any organization that plays him and wants to play the best, like, this is a guy that could potentially be a piece to your championship winning team. The problem with all this for the Kings again is that the front office and the management of the Kings has been god awful for the last 10 years. Like, we're almost approaching the time, and in a couple years we'll be looking back again talking about, and we talked about this before, Pete, right? We said that the Kings won the trade, or they won the draft lottery when they got the number 2 pick, right? Because we all know that Aiton was coming out of that draft for Phoenix as the number 1 pick. So this was a perfect
Yeah.
opportunity to get Luka Doncic and build your future with the Aaron Fox. They went the other route. They went with the Marvin Bagley route. Okay, fine. You went Marvin Bagley. He obviously hasn't panned out, right? And now you got Tyrese Haliburton, another guard who, again, I looked at it and said, he might have a funky shot, but I think it goes in at a good, decent amount. It goes in at a good clip that I think that he could be a good player to kind of build your, I wouldn't say maybe your backcourt duo with Fox and Halliburton, and you just kind of fill in the rest and see if you can't get a score. And all the statistical categories prove, and again, I'll just wait for my thing. I think it's disconnecting, so I don't know if you can hear me.
Can hear you.
Okay. It's one of those things. I look at it and I'm just, okay, there we go. I think it did a little glitch and then it's ready. Again, this kid is too damn important to build around, to let him go for Sabonis, who, again, is he going to change the culture for the Sacramento Kings? No. No player is going to change the culture of an organization that does not value winning basketball, that doesn't value getting players at the right time. I mean, we could look at the drafts that they've been drafting since 2010, right? They should have been able to get some of these guys. I think Klay Thompson was up there as one of those guys that they could have gotten. There's so many guys. Like, I want to look back. Pete, why don't you talk for a little bit as I look back at their NBA draft? But I've been so frustrated with the Kings these last couple of years, man, that it's frustrating because I loved their Peja Stojakovic team with Chris Webber and Divock and all those guys. Like, that was a fun team to watch. Like, you're not
Maybe. Yeah.
creating that team. You're just not creating it. They don't have the team or the pieces to create a team like that. Like, as much as you want to make Buddy Hield, your Peja Stojakovic, and your Chris Webber. I don't even know who they got if that could be their Chris Webber. I think they tried to make that Marvin Bagley. And then you have your guard and like Jason Williams and De'Aaron Fox. Like it's just not happening, man.
I mean, regardless of basically all of it, like you said it, the biggest thing is passing Luca, like, or even Trey. I mean, we talk about Luca, right? Like even
Mm-hmm.
Trey, both of those guys change your whole outlook. Your whole
Yeah,
perspective is different. And realistically, they're not only change your whole outlook of like, oh wow, this is actually just look at these guys are awesome, right? They change the perception of your whole team, your whole franchise. Like Luca
mm-hmm.
would have changed Sacramento's everything about them, the way people looked at them as a team. They could have been another California team. Like that's
Yeah,
all it takes, right? Like Sacramento is a very nice city if you go there. People
yeah,
always talk about it like it's this dog water town. Like I actually, if I had to choose, I'd go there before I went to LA at this point in time.
yeah.
Easily.
No,
Like
no
it's
one,
not even
no one chooses
close.
L.A.
Right now you have to think about that. Like that
Yeah,
actually should matter to people. People always talk about LA as this like it is a mecca of the United States of like it's either that or New York City, but realistically, Sacramento's a nicer place to live in the same state. It has a
mm-hmm.
lot of the same benefits too.
Yeah,
And the same negatives for that matter too, but a lot less of them. That being said, all it takes is one guy to be good enough for your team to be relevant. Say, hey, I actually love Sacramento. I love living here. Like, look at what Joe Burrow is doing for Cincinnati. Like that city is growing at a rapid rate, not just because of Joe Burrow. That's not what I mean, but like he definitely is changing the culture, the perspective of the
yep.
town.
It's all about
It
culture,
being
man.
cool, yeah, that it really is. And if you have somebody who's just happy to be in the place they're at, God, man, that has to matter more to some of these teams. Like,
Yeah,
it really bothers me so much. Like you hear it all the time, even with people trying to make trades for their teams,
yeah.
right? Like one of the ones that always gets me, and I'm going to hit home close for you right now with your Celtics. I always hear all these people telling just everybody how they should trade Jaylen Brown, right? Like everything I've seen and heard, Jaylen Brown likes Boston. Am I wrong? Like,
He
I feel
loves
like
Boston.
he's
I think that the Jays. I mean, they had a podcast. Jason Tatum talked about the
love it
struggles
there.
of that team with Kyrie Irving, and why they didn't win a
Yeah,
championship. But this, I think it goes back to that point. Like, why trade? Why trade a good thing? I mean, to kind of go back to another point, Pete. In their 2011 draft, they had a chance to get Klay Thompson. Who did they choose? The hottest guy in the tournament, Jimmer Fredette, at that time, and we all know how that turned
yeah.
out. Again, obviously if fans or buts, but still, they could have signed a lot of these guys. They could have signed Kawhi Leonard, or sorry, not signed, but uh,
Sure,
obtained or
drafted him.
draft.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm trying to think of the word. Draft. They could have gotten Kawhi Leonard. They could have gotten Tobias Harris. I mean, there were so many
probably
guys.
Giannis. I don't even know what their pick was that year, but probably that year too.
I mean, let's see what year that was. Let me go back. What was that? 2010, 2011,
Oh,
2010?
no. For Giannis, 2016,
The 2016.
2015. It
Let's
must have been 2015, actually.
let's
Might have
see
been
here.
Joel Embiid and
See where the I mean, they took Marquise Chris that year, right? And they had a chance to get their guy Sabonis a couple picks later.
passed.
Uh,
Passed
you
him
know,
up.
Yabusele for the Celtics. um,
Yikes.
again, but they had a chance to get DeJounte Murray. They had a chance to get a lot of these guys that, we look at today and are like, dang, they could have been a pretty good team. Like, and that's the thing too. If they wanted Sabonis this whole time, they should have just drafted him then instead of getting Marquise Chris. I don't know what need Marquise Chris was filling for them. Obviously, he was an exciting young freshman at Washington, but still, like I think that if they were looking at a guy that was like, okay, we want to return to those Kings days, they might as well have just gotten Sabonis. And I'm surprised Divock didn't do that back when he was. I don't know if he's still there as the front office guy, but I hope not.
I think he is.
Eesh.
Pretty sure he is. Yeah. Uh, Realistically, like I hold very high value in culture players, like
Uh-huh.
especially young guys that are positive impacts on your team,
Mm-hmm.
and especially guys who are just getting better. That's why, like I mentioned it earlier when we were talking about the Knicks, I wouldn't trade RJ for just about anything. It's very similar to the reason I am so down on this trade for Sacramento. Why would you get rid of the guy that you picked? He's your guy. He likes it there. He's happy with the fan base. The fan base is happy with him. And he just keeps getting better. There's no
Mm-hmm.
bad that can come of that. Especially like the only time I think it's ever worthy is when you go from being not a championship contender to a championship contender. That's the
Yeah.
only time it's worth it. Me personally.
Oh man, like even looking at their 2014, man, they should have gotten Zach LaVine.
I found
Instead they
2013 was Giannis. 15, they took Ben McLemore at 7.
oh man, like even
Which
this
that one
draft.
is like nobody was talking about Giannis, so I'm not really saying like, wow, what a shame. But like even I mean the biggest one is the Luca draft. Like we
Yeah.
have to just call a spade a spade. Like
Yeah.
passing up Luca was he was so obviously the
Yeah.
second the first best player in my opinion, but at least the second best player. It
Yeah.
was so obvious.
Yeah.
You take a guy, Marvin Bagley, who underperformed in college. Like, he was not bad in college. I'm not going to start changing history. He was good
Yeah.
for Duke. But he wasn't running a bunch of adults in the Euro League, smashing dudes, winning MVPs and stuff like that. Like, we said it till we were blue in the face when the draft happened. It was a mistake then. And really, I think it defines where they're at. Like, very mediocre as a
Yeah.
result of that pick. Very mediocre.
Yeah, like I mean that's the thing, now you got Marvin Bagley on the Detroit Pistons, a team that's struggling right now to find an identity for themselves. I know they're dealing with I don't even know if they're dealing with injuries currently, they're just not a really they're not a really cohesive team at the current moment. So again, like my frustration has always been when it comes to this team for the Kings is like they've had multiple opportunities these past 10 years to draft a guy to build their culture around. They obviously got De'Aaron Fox. That he's been a pretty solid player for them. Won't say that he's been like the most amazing player, but he's been a solid player. But they haven't built anything around him to really promise that this team could potentially be something. They could potentially be a team where they can make a move. Make some noise in the playoffs. Maybe be a team that challenges in the West. I know it's a hard conference that they play in, but again, from my perspective, Pete, I have been just frustrated with the fact that this Kings team has continuously not lived up to their standards of what they built their culture on. If we remember those early 2000 teams, I know that for our younger audience, like they haven't watched probably those Kings teams, but those Kings teams to me built a culture of like just hard nosed grinders, like guys that like Island of Misfit Toys essentially. And I think that you could have gotten that same swagger and culture drafting a guy like Luka Doncic, who was clearly above and beyond the best player in that draft. We stand him. We were looking at buying his Real Madrid jersey when he was still playing there. Like
Up to
we
him. Yeah.
we were big on Luka Doncic when his draft year came up because we saw the potential. We saw what he could potentially be and what he is now and what he still could be, right? He's still not done progressing as a player. Even Trey Young, I think, for that matter. Like, there are so many guys that the Sacramento Kings could have gotten, what they should have done. At the end of the day, they absolutely folded and fumbled the bag. Like, this,
Oh, dude, undeniably so.
and that to me is the most frustrating thing. If I'm, for how many Kings fans, I'm not sure how many Kings fans there are out there, but if I'm a Kings fan, I would have been living in turmoil for the last 10 years, begging them to be getting a guy that they can build around. They have yet to find that guy, and I don't know if they will at this point. I don't even know. Let me look at to see where the draft pick is at this year, just to see like if they might have another chance. They keep, it's like they keep getting these chances, and every time they, maybe are able to do it, they continue to fumble the bag, and that's the frustrating part about it. I mean, right now they would currently be at the sixth pick, right?
Yeah.
They have a chance to maybe sneak in there to top 4, top 5, or I should say, maybe be the top 5 pick. Like, and I could see them drafting a guy that they are saying, like, instead of draft, they don't draft according to like what everybody's saying, right? Paulo, Jabari, Chet. They're gonna probably go with someone random, and not really
Probably.
build the culture that they need to. And I could go on a rant about the Kings for about another 20 minutes, Pete, but it is
Oh, they're so
frustrating.
frustrating.
They're
They're
one of the
so
most
frustrating, man.
frustrating teams in the NBA, probably in my lifetime, because it is a frustrate. To me, why it's frustrating is because I think that they could have been so good these last couple of years, and if they drafted properly, if they got the right people in there to say like, "Hey, we should be looking at this guy," or the fact that no one in the front office made the GM take Luka Doncic, I would have strapped him down and been like, "You are not answering the phone until you promise me that you're taking Luka Doncic." Like,
Oh,
and
yeah.
ugh.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to like the original point of Tyrese Haliburton. Again, a guy that I thought again isn't going to be the main guy for your team, right? He's not going to be but he's the best point guard for your team. So if
Yeah.
this year now you can look at it and be like, okay, we want our point guard to be Tyrese Haliburton. Let's look at the other picks that we have in here and see if we can get into the top 4 and sneak in there. Let's try to get one of these up and coming, whether it is, a guy in Jaden Ivey or Jabari Smith or Chet Holmgren or Paulo. Like, those should be the guys that they're looking at. I think Paulo could be a good pickup for them, especially if they want to kind of go in that mold of trying to find that next power forward, which they were looking at with Marvin Bagley. He could potentially be that
Yeah.
guy, depending if they get that pick or not. But who knows, man? It is a
No, they're just going to
frustrating.
take a guard.
They're going to take another guard.
100%.
It's going to be
I
frustrating.
would put money on that personally. Another guard to Sacramento.
Another guard to Sacramento, and then they trade that guard away instead of De'Aaron Fox. And then they wonder why they can't win games.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a very frustrating team. I just brought that up. Just mere fact, I saw that interview today and I was thinking about it, and I was already frustrated by it. But just seeing it again, like seeing how upset he still is that it happened, right?
Yeah, I'd be upset too.
I mean, everybody complains about the way that people are, like, or I should say, the way that players are with their empowerment, moving to these other teams, and forcing their way out of their contracts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is one of those moments where I say, like, if everybody's paying attention all the time and the media was really reporting this stuff in a fair and equal way towards the player side of things, they would be talking about this. Like,
Yeah.
this is the reverse of that, right? Where now you say, hey, you did love us, and you would have signed another contract here, would have made this place your home and treated this fan base the way,
Yeah.
we want our fans to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want you.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is exactly why player empowerment is a thing. They make it a thing by treating people like this. So,
yeah.
I mean, I hope Tyrese Haliburton has an incredible career. I really think he's going to. I just hope Indiana gets good enough around him soon that they don't waste 4 years. I just don't want to see him go rebuild to rebuild. Like, he's a better player than that, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see, man. Let us know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of the Tyrese Haliburton trade? Again, this is kind of going into a full depth of the Tyrese Haliburton side. We've talked about the Sabonis side before on this channel, but let us know in the comment section down below. What do you make of Tyrese Haliburton being frustrated and JJ Redick calling them out for trading away such a talented player? Let us know in the comment section down below, and remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe if you're new to the channel.